Hello, welcome to the Smart ADHD Podcast. I'm Ian Gray, and I'm your host as we navigate into the world of having ADHD and being smart and the combination of those. Well, in this episode, we're going to be asking the question, what actually is ADHD? Because there's so many myths, misconceptions. There is a stigma attached as well. And I'm very excited because my guest today, the first guest of Smart ADHD, is a good friend of mine. And she's also our family ADHD coach. It's Dr. Tamara Rosier. She's written a book called Your Brain's Not Broken, which I highly recommend. It is really the book to read right at the start of your journey, I would say. But she's got other books as well. Now, she's had a diverse professional journey encompassing roles such as a college administrator, professor, leadership consultant, high school teacher, ADHD coach, and business owner. I'm kind of laughing because there's quite an ADHD career there, because I can empathize with that. I've had lots of different jobs, different roles throughout my life. Now, through these varied experiences, she's gained invaluable insights into ADHD and its impact on individuals' lives. As the founder of the ADHD Center of West Michigan, Tamara guides a dedicated team of coaches, therapists, and speech pathologists in assisting individuals, parents, and families as they develop a deep understanding of themselves and acquire practical skills to navigate life with ADHD. Her books, Your Brain's Not Broken, and the new one, which will be coming out later this year, You, Me, and Our ADHD Family, offer practical strategies for addressing the potent emotional dimensions of living with ADHD. Well, let's get on with the episode right now. So welcome, Tamara. It's great to have you on this first episode of the podcast. We've known each other for quite a while, haven't we? And just a bit of an intro. So I think I discovered you on YouTube. There was some kind of class you were doing on there. And then you came on my other podcast, the Confident Live Marketing Podcast. This was before I even realized I had ADHD. And I think one of the first things you said to me, something like, well, I think you said something like, you're my people, or something like that. I can't remember what you said. Has been a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, that was an ADHD blurt. Yeah, and then we became friends from there. You know, I love having you as a friend. I think you're so creative, so smart. But yes, I did an ADHD blurty thing. When I meet my people, I tend to go, oh, I found one of my people. And that was well, you're one of me. I was trying to, it's one of those things where you're trying to put back the words, just suck it all back. So
Exactly. Just blurts out. It all comes out. And you've become, you're helping us, helping me, helping my family. You're our ADHD coach, and we've learned so much. It's been amazing. So thank you so much. And thank you also, I don't know whether to thank you about this, but you're kind of partly to thank for this podcast, for giving me the encouragement to launch this. So I really appreciate that. So this podcast is all about being smart with ADHD. But before we get started with any of that, we have to ask the question. Seems a really basic question to ask you because, you've written two amazing books. I've read one of them. The second one hasn't come out yet as I record this. But what is ADHD?
So ADHD is coming a long way, because when we were diagnosing several years ago, we couldn't see the brain. Now we can see the brain. And so we understand ADHD now as a neurological difference. So ADHD really, it stands for attention deficit hyperactive disorder. And that's really an unfortunate name, because that's you might as well say naughty boy disease. So we don't have a naughty boy disease. What we have is a neurological difference. It's not a preference. I don't prefer to have ADHD, by the way, but I have a neurological difference. And so I'm going to explain it neurologically and then from symptoms, okay? Neurologically, those of us with ADHD don't have reliable access to the prefrontal cortex. And for those of you who are only listening, if you tap the front of your forehead, that's where the prefrontal cortex is. And the prefrontal cortex of the brain is really important. It's this modern amenity that we have to remember where we parked our car, to think through things, to kind of emotionally regulate. It's the seat of all these executive functions. And you remember that because we've talked a lot about that. And you can see it. Before we started recording, you said, how's your day? I'm like, oh my gosh, I've had a bad day so far. I've only been awake for 3 hours, but I can't believe how many things could go wrong today. And because I don't have the prefrontal cortex to kind of calm it all down, to go, that's fine, that's a nuisance, that's not a big deal, that's a small deal, let it go. It all felt big and overwhelming. And so for those of us with ADHD, with an unreliable access to that prefrontal cortex, we rely on a different part of our brain, and that's called the limbic system. If you place your hand over your ear, that's approximately where the limbic system is. And the limbic system is really important. Mammals have this, and it's what keeps us safe. And so it's this little alerting system going, oh my goodness, am I safe? Am I in danger? What's happening? And so those of us with ADHD have this constant alerting system going off. So when I was having a frazzled morning, my prefrontal cortex, and I didn't take stimulants yet because they weren't in my body yet. It's morning here. My limbic system was going, wah, wah, wah. I think everything's dangerous. And so, I couldn't get a dog to go outside. I stubbed my toe several times this morning. It's just one of those, like, if you follow me around, you would think, wow, is she doing a bit right now? Like a comedic bit. And the whole time I'm thinking, I've got to hurry. I've got to do this and do this. And for a second, my brain was like, you're in danger. This is important. You're in danger now. And so because I know I have ADHD, I took a deep breath, talked to my brain and said, hey, this is ADHD. You're getting confused right now. You're not in danger. Try to take a deep breath and calm down. So neurologically, I just kind of explained how I went through the morning. If a person did not have ADHD, they would have probably had like, oh, I stubbed my toe. Well, first of all, they may not have stubbed their toe. They may have more body awareness, but they would see it as, well, this is just irritating and not have the big emotions attached to it. Some symptoms of ADHD, we tend to hear a lot about focus, but really that's not the biggest symptom of ADHD. Emotional regulation is the biggest symptom of ADHD. And our inability to attach moderate emotions to things, that's what really suffers. So our emotions, and Ian, you know this, we go from 1 to 10, right? And we forget about the 4, 5, 6 range of intensity, right? And for all the listeners who just went, oh, yes, that's a lot of what ADHD feels like. So there's our other things, though. We have problems with short attention. Our short-term memories are compromised. Our working memories are compromised. Working memories are like that little board you have in your head that you can scribble something on and hold it there for a second. And I don't know about you, Ian, but mine is a very small board and I can't write a lot on it and it gets erased very easily. So my working memory is even compromised.
Is it a bit like those etch sketches that I had when I was? It's kind of like you draw this painting and then your brother comes in or your sister and they kind of shake it all up and it's all gone.
That's exactly. Our working memory is like an etch a sketch. That is what you should get your T-shirts. Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Perfect.
And I think you may have written this in your book that your brain's not broken. I can't remember, but it's the prefrontal cortex is almost like a butler that you can get to do things. I don't know if that's something that you mentioned, but sometimes you can say, well, okay, butler, get the keys. Can you find the keys? And for neurotypical people, I almost hear this Jeeves-like voice, certainly, sir. Yes, you'll find them in the hallway. But if you're ADHD, it's like crickets. You're just like, what? There's nothing going to go on.
It's worse. Because instead of Jeeves answering, and first of all, you did a great impression, and that will stay in my memory. We actually have an angry neighbor screaming at us over his fence, shaking a shoe, saying, if you don't find your keys, I'm going to throw them at you or throw this at you. And he's threatening us. That's what it's like to have ADHD. So I want the calm butler.
We want Jeeves.
In fact, your impersonation is beautiful.
The other thing that you were talking about, talking about your bad start to the day. And hopefully it's only going to get better because we're doing this podcast.
I'm with you now. Yep.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm a big Star Wars fan. And I just imagine like on a spaceship and the sirens are going and it's like warning, warning, warning. It's like all these things going on. Fire alarms, smoke alarms, all going off at the same time as well. I wanted to ask you though. We talked about what ADHD is, and this podcast is focusing on smart individuals. And so what is the connection between ADHD and smart individuals and people with high intelligence? We're going to focus a little bit more of that on a future episode, because I think a lot of people think that people with ADHD can't be smart, or people with ADHD sometimes question their own intelligence.
Okay, so I'm very excited about this new project of yours. And one of the reasons I'm so excited is one of the specialties I have is I work with high IQ people who have ADHD. And I feel like this group suffers so much shame and self-loathing because of it. So first of all, ADHD is a neurological difference, okay? IQ is based on so many different things. Some of it's hereditary, a lot of it's environmental. Carol Dweck talks about how you can increase your IQ, all that through growth mindset, right? So I find my clients who have high IQ, which means, let's just talk about his firepower for now, right? They have a lot of mental firepower. The problem is they have this mental firepower, like, man, I can think through things. And yet they don't have a Jeeves to order it for them, right? So they have all these brilliant ideas and they just need a butler to just say, sir, that's a great idea. Could you write that down and then continue doing this project first? Because that's what our prefrontal cortex does. And so these individuals with high firepower live lives of feeling like they never reach their potential. They shame themselves to motivate that. I wrote about that in my first book. Some of them hate themselves and they're angry all the time at themselves. And so it's a painful existence. And it's why I work with this population, because I see their pain. And by the way, I have ADHD. You're kind of outing yourself with this podcast. And I need to tell you, there are people who still say to me, well, how can you have ADHD and have a PhD, write a book, and do all these things, right? Run a business. And it's because I've learned how to manage my ADHD, right? I'm still a hot mess. Like today, I was a hot mess, right? Executive functions, I had none. I was just like, I felt like I was flailing in a pool, right? But it's hard because now I could take that morning and go, see, Tamara, that's evidence on how dumb you are. You can't even handle a morning. You must not be that smart. And a lot of people with high IQ have imposter syndrome. Like, yeah, I've done this, but if you guys really followed me around, I look a bit like Lucille Ball. She's a 1950 actress who did a lot of physical humor and, bumping into things. And that's what I look like sometimes.
Yeah. I've had similar issues, I think. Imposter syndrome is a biggie. We'll be talking about that on this podcast, and good bit of self-loathing. So that's the 6 bad tools that you've talked about before. And again, we'll talk about that. Actually, there's a video. I took a little bit of what you were saying from the last podcast where you were talking about the 6 bad tools. That's on the Smart ADHD YouTube channel. When it came to this podcast, I was quite apprehensive, very apprehensive to launch this because, in a sense, I'm nailing my what's the analogy? I always get the wrong. The mast, colors to the mast, or whatever it is. I'm getting it wrong. I don't know. Anyway, whatever it is, I've had people that have said to me, people that I really respect, who've said, like, Ian, like, is it a good idea for you to launch a channel talking about ADHD? Because we all know people who say they have ADHD who are always late, they're unreliable, and they're not going to get hired by business owners, And so I've had that concern. And then there's the whole label issue, ADHD part of my identity and all those kind of things. And so on one side, I've had all of those kind of negative thoughts. But on the other hand, because of all the struggles that I've had, and I know so many people that are struggling at the moment with ADHD, smart individuals, I feel that the time is right these people need help. And I'm so excited. I'm excited about this. And I almost feel I haven't really got a choice. I have to do this. For all the negative stuff that I'm thinking about, the amount of excitement that I have is almost equal to that. But I just wanted to know, what are your thoughts on some of those things that I've been feeling? Are those kind of typical?
Well, I have so many thoughts. First of all, I am proud of you. This is incredibly courageous to do. When I started the ADHD Center of West Michigan, I didn't realize I was going to out myself. And people did say things to me like, on the sidelines of a soccer game, at my child's soccer game, oh, don't give them to Tamara. She has ADHD. And so people do say careless things. And, I'm standing there going, wait a minute, I run a business, I have a PhD, and you're still treating me like I'm 12? By the way, I didn't want to hold whatever she was anyway, but it was still an insult, right? And so a lot of us carry this weight of those little micro cuts, those careless little things of, well, Ian can't do that. He has ADHD. And then sometimes they might even be accurate and we're embarrassed. And so that is not representative of our intelligence, though. That's talking about our executive functions. And so I help my clients understand your executive functions are poor. Ian, guess what? Your executive functions are poor. That's not you. That's not how smart you are. But we need to find ways to work with yourself to compensate for this. What you're feeling is real. And yet, I think there's a whole bunch of people out there who need the hope that you're going to give them to go, hey, let's just figure out this neurological difference. Let's just figure this out. And you've met your people. So let's hang out together and let's celebrate who we are and keep getting better. It's just like, you wear glasses. That's not a moral issue that you wear glasses. Your eyes are shaped in different ways. I don't know all the different things about eyes, but your eyes are shaped differently. The lens is pushed in a different direction and you use glasses to correct it. That's not a moral issue. And what we do is we make ADHD a moral issue instead of just a neurological difference. And I think you're picking up like, should I be coming out about this? Like, people think this is a moral thing. Does that make sense or ring true with you?
It does make sense. And of course, the other thing is that there are people with ADHD keep very quiet about it because they're worried about being judged about it, and that, they may not be hired for a job because there is this stigma attached to it. And we'll come on to that in the next episode. But there is still so many myths, and there's a stigma attached to ADHD, which could mean that some people might not even hire you because they're worried about you not turning up or things like that. But I think that is another reason why why I'm launching this podcast, because that's not always the case. Because particularly if you're a smart ADHDer, we have learned strategies, not all of them good, and this is something that you help with. But
we'll get there.
But some of them are good, and we can at least turn the bad ones into good ones. And there are advantages. It's not always a superpower, but there are big advantages. Always get the divergent and convergent mixed up, but I think it's divergent thinking, isn't it? Thinking outside the box as well. That's what this podcast is all about.
I love that you're doing this. This is an important work that you're doing. And I'm hoping that your listeners will kind of start to bond with the fact that I'm okay. I titled my book, Your Brain's Not Broken, because it was a letter to all the clients I would never meet, just saying, you're okay. You're going to be okay. I know you feel like garbage right now, but you're going to be okay. And that's what I love about this podcast. I think that's the ethos behind what you're doing here.
It definitely is. There is hope. So your brain is not broken. I'm still laughing at that you were on a podcast episode where the host got it the wrong way around and said your brain is broken, which made me laugh. But there is hope. And that book is amazing. It's such a helpful book. There's so many analogies that you come up with, and I know that it has helped so many people. You've got another book coming out. What we're going to do, Tamara, actually, I was going to ask you about myths and misconceptions, but we've covered so much good material. We've actually run out of time. We're trying to keep these episodes really short, and tell listeners a bit more about this new book that you've got coming out, because I'm really excited about that.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. It's called You, Me, and Our ADHD Family. ADHD is highly hereditary. So if there's one ADHD person, you can usually find more. My dad was a good example. When I was in college, I called home and said, hey, I'm learning about this thing called ADHD. I was trained as a teacher. And he's like, no, that's just a made up disease. Everyone has it. That's normal. And you know what? In my house, it was normal. I had 2 parents with ADHD. Now, the problem is, as I talked about earlier in this episode, one of the number 1 symptoms is emotional dysregulation. The book is about how do you live in a family when you have ADHD, when your chief symptom is emotional dysregulation. How do you get your stuff together and learn to truly live and love with the people you're related to?
I can speak from experience there, and you've been incredibly helpful to us, and I can't wait for this book to come out. So it may have already come out. If you're listening to this in the future, do check it out. It's available from all good bookstores. I'm excited for you, Tamara. It's great. We are out of time. Thank you so much, Tamara. I'm really excited to have you back on some future episodes, but we'll see you next time.
Anytime. Thanks.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode. Do check out the next few episodes, and all the information is on our YouTube channel at Smart ADHD. Just search YouTube for Smart ADHD. And also the website is smartadhd.me, scattered across the interwebs and the socials as well. So we'd love to connect. Do send me an email at ian@smartadhd.me. I'd love to hear from you. If you have any thoughts or stories or anything like that, don't hesitate to get in touch. But until next time, I'll see you soon. Toodaloo. Bye.